Alex and Kevin, thank you for joining us on the Way of Champions today. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys having us and excited to talk more. Already enjoying the pre-talk before we started.
Yeah, it was turned into one of those things where we almost forget to hit record sometimes, and so that's always my biggest panic moment. I have the sticky notes up here that say hit record, just in case, because sometimes it rolls in. Let's go though. Like let's start with you, Alex, and then Kevin. Just tell our listeners a little bit about your background leading up to this book together, and then we'll dive into the book.
Sure. So I was actually born in the Philippines to educators, and then when I was a baby, moved back to the U.S., bounced around a bit. Longest time upstate New York, and then went to high school in Madison, Wisconsin. Um, One state, got a D1 scholarship, St. Joe's University, transferred to Cornell University in New York. And it's funny because I just went back last week for the
Hmm.
first time in almost 30 years and took my kids there
To Cornell.
after a basketball tournament in Toronto. Yeah, I went
Nice.
back to Ithaca because my dad used to teach at Cornell. My mom worked at Cornell and Ithaca College. And so we were like, oh, we're out in Toronto. Might as well, since we're this far out, we live in Madison, Wisconsin now. Um, but it was at Cornell. I took a picture. It was there where I found out that there's pro basketball in the Philippines. I was
Yeah.
just sitting in the coach's office. I was a captain. I was with one of our assistant coaches watching film, and he mentioned places he had played, and one of them was the Philippines. I said, "Oh, that's crazy! I was born in the Philippines," and that led to me ending up playing in the Philippines for 10 years, coaching for 12. And was an assistant coach with the national team. Was the head coach of the pro team. It started the Nike camp out there. Started something with a close friend. Actually, started something with a coach who brought me over to the Philippines called the NBTC, which is now like 15,000 plus players in this large international tournament for high school kids. And then during COVID, came back to the U.S. because life in Manila, it was hard to get out of the house, and so came back to visit my parents and got stuck, and have basically been out of the pro game and the college game, and just didn't want to be on the road coaching. Wanted to spend time with my kids. So had started a business. And a close friend of Kevin and I's approached us about the possibility of writing a book like this because he had first written a book on for parents on understanding your kid's academic journey called Wisest Learners for Parents. And for Kevin and I think it was both a no-brainer. Both of us really value family and spending time with our children. And so it took us a year and a half, but we finally got it done. I have three kids now who are 13, 12, and 10, two
Wow.
boys and a girl. And just, I don't want to be on the road. I want to be there watching them. And just my oldest son just started his first week of tackle football for the first time ever. So we're in all kinds of different sports. And anyways, that's my background and how we got into this.
Awesome. Awesome. Kevin, why don't you give us the 30,000 foot overview?
Yeah, so a California boy. I went and played high school and then college basketball down in California. Went to Vanguard University. Played 4 years there. Fantastic. I had a great time. Met my future wife there. And then afterwards, I went to the Philippines and I played out there, and that's where I met Alex. He was one of the first guys I met, and our lives continuously intersected. Eventually, I left after playing out there a couple of years, and then came back and jumped into coaching pretty quick. So I've been coaching and just continue to love giving back to the game of basketball. Everything has been for me and my family. And I have two brothers who also went to Vanguard. And so, basketball has been something that's been continuous for me, but not only basketball, just the love of sports. I have two boys, um, an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old, and both have done multiple sports. My high schooler, he is very in love with the game of basketball now. He started his journey in golf and did all the things, but really now that basketball is his sport. My little one, he actually starts flag football here pretty soon. So they've done the golf and baseball and soccer and those things. And so and then I got a beautiful wife who I get actually work with, and we're both educators, and so we're on campus with our kids, and that's just a beautiful time, just spending time with family. And I think that's Alex and I's heart is that we love family, we love being with our kids, we love seeing our kids excel, but we enjoy them being challenged, and sports is a great way to see them challenge and teach them how to become young men, and for Alex, a young woman. And so that's our combined passion that we both share.
I love it. It's I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend, because you've both emphasized you have this long background in coaching, but also being a parent and how that changes it. And I had a conversation with a friend yesterday about this, who he manages a lot of coaches and gets a lot of, young coaches just starting out. And when he talks about how they're treating children or engaging with the parents about the kid, he just said, I just got in this argument with this coach about, listen, you're not a parent, like you just don't understand yet what it means to be a parent, what it means to love a human being that much. And he said, the guy was all angry at him and, "Yeah, come on, you don't, I know exactly what it's like." And he's like, "No, you don't." So maybe an interesting first thing is, how did each of your, and Alex first, how did your approach to coaching change once you became a parent? Did you have a whole new understanding of that this person in front of me means a hell of a lot to someone, that maybe I need to just take a deep breath here?
Yeah, so great question. And by the way, I love the use of the word yet. That we always emphasize that when we're teaching our kids or other kids. Um, yeah, I am a really happy-go-lucky guy. I love people, love joking around, having fun. Basketball is the one thing that I would be intense about. And uh, I noticed when I had my firstborn that initially my coaching was impacting my parenting too much. That was one of my mistakes. I noticed this particularly. Kevin and I had written a chapter in this book on control beliefs. I noticed it particularly as my two boys started playing, because I was used to first playing with grown men, and then when I became a coach, coaching grown men. And there's a gruffness that can be there, even though I'm a happy-go-lucky, I think generally pleasant guy. Uh, when it's time to get to work, you kind of, we're winning, let's go. And so I noticed that I really want that impacted how I was fathering my boys, and most notably in car rides after they first started playing travel basketball in third and fourth grade out here in Wisconsin. And I'd ask them about the game, and I would expect almost like a grown man sense of accountability and responsibility in their actions and their how they describe the game. And when they would answer, "Dad, did you see the refs?" Or, "Dad, that kid didn't pass me the ball." Or, "Dad, they were," it was 100%. The first few minutes was all other people. And honestly, it just drove me nuts. Like I didn't, I wasn't screaming at him or anything, but oh man, I was bothered. Because as a coach, like if you did X, take responsibility. That's okay. We're all going to screw up, but learn from it. Don't do it again. And so, because I had not prepared myself as a parent, to my shame, for where they were at developmentally, I was actually like angry inside and just trying to manage it. Um, so it was actually I recognized all this when we were doing the book, that kids are born with everything, life happening to them with an external, you know locus of control, and then you learn how to make them, and you shift them along the spectrum. And I was taking my goal of an end result grown man taking responsibility for his actions and putting that expectation on 8 and 9 year olds. So unfortunately, to start, my coaching had a negative impact on my parenting. And then it was through kind of getting into the research, like, oh, I'm totally dropping the ball on this. I gotta be better. I gotta be more understanding of where they're at.
Right.
And so I think my players had probably wished that I had that realization a good bit earlier in my coaching career, but we got it now.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin, what about you?
So I started coaching pretty much right at the same time I had a kid. And so I didn't have that realization, but the realization that I think you're kind of mentioning is I'm having right now as I've coached high school kids for the past 10 years. Oh, longer than that, 15 years almost. And as I'm coaching these high school kids, I see these parents who are making decisions and are doing things that I might not understand or agree with. But now I have my own high schooler, and now so I'm living what they were going through.
Hmm.
And so that's where I'm like having some retrospective. I'm going, oh, I get it now, right? I thought I got it, but I didn't get it. And now, as I'm navigating this journey, a really good friend of mine, um, he really pushed me. He has a kid that's a couple of years, about 6 years older than my son, and he'd tell me, Kevin, when your son gets to this age, you're going to get it. You're going to understand what I'm telling you now. You're going to understand the drive that I have, the passion that I have for my kid. And so now, as my kid's entering high school, and he wants to do some very big things with basketball, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Hmm.
And I had a kid, but it wasn't until I get to kind of start that journey and that path that now I'm seeing the fuller picture in that. And so I think now as a coach and as I'm parenting through this, and then when I'm done with my own kids, I think I'll have that kind of perspective of like, oh, I get it now, because not only did I see it as a coach, now I've lived it as a coach and a parent, and now I can help guide parents and coaches as well. So yeah, I can sense that a lot.
Yeah, before Jerry jumps in here, I just want to like maybe comment on that. And it's actually even, I think, more helpful to have more than one kid because then you see how children who were raised by the same parents and ate the same food and lived in the same house can be completely different as well. And your statement there, which I want to emphasize because it's important, is I see the drive in my son. I think, my kid to do something in basketball. Not I am driven for my son to do something in basketball, right? It comes from him because if he doesn't have that, it doesn't matter what you want for him or what you do. It's got to be his journey. And you both know that the higher level of basketball, being a college player, being a professional player, man, if you're that's not it can't come from outside of you. It's too hard. You gotta love the game. You gotta love putting in the work. You gotta love getting better. You got to be resilient. All the things you talk about in the book that we're gonna unpack here. It comes from the child. It does not come from the parent. And so that was more of a statement. Jerry, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I've had four kids, so I had a lot of opportunity to make mistakes. With the first one, I think I made 5,000 mistakes, and by the time the second one came along, it went down to 500. By the fourth one, I think maybe 50, 60 mistakes. So I'm getting better. Uh, but they became my what I call my Zen masters in residence. And it wasn't just for sports. Sports was the vehicle. And because they were playing sports, we learned the lessons that we needed to learn to develop the relationships, which brings me right back to the major point that I want to make, which is this is all about relationships, isn't it? It's about how we are together as human beings, not human doings. Coaching is you're going to do this. Human being is how are you going to be today? You're going to be courageous. You're going to be resilient. You're going to be patient. What are you going to do? How are you going to be? But so these Zen masters that I call them are really valuable teachers, and the education is coming from them. So they reflect what I need to know. And that's what I hear you guys saying. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know what's really been stuck in my just in my mind the past couple weeks, and I had seen it like a year ago. Did you guys ever see the Ted Lasso dart scene where he ends up quoting, I think, Walt Whitman, and he says the quote is "Be curious, not judgmental."
Yeah.
And a lot of times I wish as a coach and as a parent, I had had more of that initiative. I think we all have our buttons that can get pushed.
Hmm.
And like, you absolutely will not cross this line, right? And maybe when you start out as a parent, you have a lot more of those clear lines that you're ready to jump on immediately. And sometimes with a little curiosity, you get the greater picture, increased understanding, and your judgments can become a lot less harsh, and they can actually not fracture the relationship, which is of the
Yeah.
utmost importance.
Yeah.
And I think, Jerry, for Kevin and I, that is foundational. I mean, gosh, you guys feel like kindred spirits in this. because it's so much for us that we want our kids to have this great relationship with us, and that these sports are just teachers. They're microcosms of life that can help you be better in life, that can give you lessons about life, that can stick with you until you're 90, 100, however
Yeah,
old you
yeah,
are, and that can then impact other people. And the relationship pieces of really that's fundamental for me personally.
yeah, yeah.
And just one brief story with that, Jerry, is I wrote the epilogue the night that my father had a stroke next to him in the hospital. So I got a call. I had to go to the hospital. My mom had brought my dad there, and he's alive. He's made it out. But he was unconscious, and the doctor sent me home to get the living will. And that's not a comfortable. It's almost surreal feeling. Um, and I went home, and then I got it, and I came back and sent my mom home so she could rest. And it was 2 a.m. and we had to write the epilogue, and it kind of hit me as I'm sitting next to this unconscious man who raised me, and youth sports was a big part of that. I was really grateful for him, and my heart was filled with love towards him. And it hit me like, oh, that's it. That's everything we're shooting for. My day will come where I'm in that bed, and
Mhm,
I want my kids to have this same feeling,
mhm,
not to be thinking about, oh, that one time he screamed at me, it made me better,
mhm.
right? It wasn't. And so it comes down to the relationship, and that was really just an absolutely crucial piece
The
for
word,
us.
the word
Well,
curiosity.
sorry, sorry, Jerry. You certainly don't want them fighting over who's going to pull the plug. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like, you know, sorry, I don't want to make a joke. Thank God you said your dad did it, but it's like you don't want them
Yeah.
like, yeah, sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
No, no,
I
John,
just couldn't let that
you
one. I couldn't let
that's
that one lie there.
that's fine. No, no, no problem with that. Uh, but I've grown to love the word curiosity, and you just used it, and it really sums up a lot of the way I'm living my life right now. Because what curiosity does for me is it puts me in a position where I want to ask questions to learn. In order to ask questions, I have to listen. And what greater tool can we have as a coach or a parent than the tool and the skill set of being good listeners? Why? Because the kids feel important, they feel valued, they feel respected, they feel empowered, they feel all the great feelings. And so I like when you say curiosity, and I think one of the messages that our listeners can pull away from this conversation today is, yeah, it's all about love, wanting to connect and care for each other. The expression, uh, athletes or kids for that matter, they don't care about what you know, they just want to know how much you care. And it's used often, but boy, it's so true. It's like the golden rule right there. And so the curiosity piece was wonderful that you mentioned that. And I just wanted to add that if you're going to be curious, you're going to have to ask questions. And if you have to ask questions, you have to listen. In order to listen, you have to ask yourself the question, what can I learn here? And if you ask, what can I learn here? Now the kids are going to be open. And how are they going to feel? They're going to feel connected to you. They're going to feel caring about you. And they're going to feel like they really matter. And what brought this about? A 60-minute basketball, a 40-minute basketball game, which would take maybe 40 weeks in life to get the same kind of whatever. And I'm going to stop talking because I could see your heads are both filled with all kinds of brilliance right here.
So I'll share one thing, and then I'll let Kevin add. But we actually, one of our chapters is on feedback. And if you break down the word feedback, it's feed and back. So we need to get fed. How do we get fed? We ask questions and we listen. Now you get the info. Now you can chew on it. Now you have something to give back that's of real value. Too often, and it's not that you can't ever give feedback without having a long conversation. You sit down. I don't want to take it to the extreme, but more often than not, as parents, I find that we don't ask the questions to get fed first, and we're so eager to just give back. And without that initial part, I think we're really missing a lot. And a couple of those questions would be incredibly helpful as we go forward. I'll let Kevin go ahead now.
I just recall, those long ride back to back to home after a tournament or a game. And this past summer, we had 11 games in a 2-day weekend. And I walk in, it's 8 a.m. I had two boys in the tournament. And so one had, I think 6 games, the other one had five. And I walk in and it's Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I stop and I go, wow, I have 2 days where I get to spend time with my kids doing something they love. I get an opportunity to encourage them and watch them. And I was the coach, so coach them. I get to be my wife and being on this journey where our kids get to do something they love. I can't make this a miserable experience. I can't take the passion that I have for my kids, the passion that I have for the game of basketball, all this passion and turn it into my children's burden. And we say that often. Don't let your passion become your child's burden. And so, John, you kind of talk about that, your child's drive, right? Like, do they have the drive and the motivation? And I screwed that up. I talk about it in the book is my son, my oldest, was a fantastic golfer. He really took the game early, beautiful swing, was winning golf tournaments. And so I started to push. I started to lean in. I was like, I told my wife, babe, I know how to make a college athlete. Let's do this. And we're talking about the kid's 7, 8 years old. So,
Yeah.
hey, before you go to bed, 100 putts. Hey, we're going to go backyard and chip. Then we're going to go to the driving range. And then you miss a putt that you should make. Oh, man, you got it. And I ripped the love of golf from him. And I took that passion that I had. And man, it was such a burden. He came to me and said, Dad, I don't want to play golf anymore. Now, the good thing is he took that and he took that drive and all that stuff and he moved it over to basketball, which is a game I love even more. Um, but I ripped that from him. Another thing that we talk about is, and Alex has a great phrase. He says, at the end of the day, this is a parenting book written through the context of youth sports. And so, and Jerry, you hit on this too, is at the end of the day, I want my kid, and I think we can all land on this a broad definition. I want my child to be a fully functioning adult who is asset to the community around him and the people he loves. And so sports is a great way to build that. Um, I want my kid to have success in sports, but if that means he's a terrible human being, then I failed as a father. But if I can utilize youth sports to hard work, commitment, perseverance, everything that lists off, and that's what they walk away with, then I know I've succeeded. Even if he
Yeah.
doesn't go play college basketball, even if he quit basketball tomorrow or whatever it is youth sports as a way to train up young men and young
Yeah.
women. And that's what Alex and I are passionate about at the end of the day, because guess what? I stopped playing basketball at 25. Alex stopped playing at 34. We still have plenty of years left. We have to be an asset to society and the community around us. And so I think that's what we're passionate about.
Yeah. Let me jump in for a second, John. You said something, Kevin, very important to our listeners, which is, okay, so you really screwed it up with the golf. Like you really sent the wrong message. You had this epiphany, you woke up and you said, darn it, I'm not going to do that. This is more important. The full human capacity development of my child is where I'm at. Now, here's where the listeners are, here's what they're thinking right now. I'm going to speak for them, okay? They're thinking, God, Alex, Kevin, that's fantastic that you did that. How do you now manage that same kind of reaction when your son's with a sport that you're even more passionate about? Like, oh my God, this is scholarship material. I mean, this guy can get a D1 or D, doesn't matter, but the thing is, he's scholarship material. How help our listeners who are doing the same thing you have done? Because I've been there with you. I've done it with one of my kids. I want to know, like, what do you do now? How do you protect your child from that kind of, how do you separate both, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, let me first start with I still screw up too. That still does happen. But I will say, I have some, I call them filters, that I've put in place that I cannot respond out of the emotion. So one of those filters is when we get into the car, I don't talk about the game. I let them talk about it. So we get in the car, and once we get out of that parking lot, the game is done. I don't bring it up. Now, he now brings it up. Now he's brought that into the conversation. So that time where I've committed to myself, you know what? I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to wait till he talks about it. And then when he starts talking about it, then I can get a sense, and this is where that listening comes into. Where
Hmm.
does he think he's at? And
Hmm.
so recently, we had an open gym here, and my son was playing, and I thought he did terrible. Right? He was driving me nuts. I was texting my wife, and I don't say anything. We get in the gym, we get in the car, we leave, and then he starts talking about the game, and he changed my perspective of what I saw. He goes, so what I saw, he was missing layups, he wasn't finishing, um, and he communicated to me. He's like, "Yeah, man, Dad, I really couldn't finish today, but I got to the hole every time I wanted to." And um, and I kept going, I kept attacking. Dad, I didn't let that get in control of my emotions. I just kept playing through it. And he's like, I just need to finish better. And the thing is, though, he's a really good finisher, and that's what I got stuck on. I was like, why are you missing layups? That's not who you are. But when I shut my mouth and let him talk, he started pointing out his own growth, the growth that he was working on himself as a young man. And so then it changed my perspective. And then I could speak into that. He already acknowledged that he missed the layups. Why do I got to be mad about that? Like, what am I do getting mad? That's not going to do anything for him. So that huge filter for me is shut your mouth in your car. There's always a time to reevaluate. You can watch game film. You can do that later. Every parent's filming now. It doesn't need to be in the moment. Take a break. Enjoy your kid. And that's been a huge filter of mine. Don't speak in the car about the game. Let him bring it up. And when he does, listen first.
It's interesting. I mean, so many things you guys have talked about here, and that whole creating space in the car ride or at the house or whatever, allowing your child to bring it up. And you both have a certain level of expertise in this sport that you are going to comment on as a parent, right? There's a lot of parents who have no expertise in the sport and they're going to comment on it, right? We have a good friend, Jim Hardy, who runs US Kids Golf, and we just spent some time with him, and the same thing about, missing that 3 foot putt. Like the kid meant to miss the 3 foot putt. Like no one means to me. And then I just watched some guy on TV who's hit 2 million putts and he missed a 3 foot putt too, right? So it's just this amazing because as a parent we want the best for our kids, but just that ability to let go, to release them. It's your journey, not mine. And I have people that I know who tell me about their kids and they keep using the word we scored
Yeah,
25 points or
I
we
hate
won
that.
this tournament. And I'm just like, man, you don't even realize, like, stop saying we, because we did not, because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you weren't out there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I loved your quote that you said a little bit back. Don't let your passion become your child's burden. Like, what an important concept. And your kids, because you guys both love basketball and coach basketball, they're going to get a lot of exposure to basketball. My kids got a lot of exposure to soccer because I coached it and I was around it and whatever. People used to be like, "Oh, you want your kids to play soccer?" I'm like, "Not really. Like I've seen enough games. I'd rather not watch any more soccer games. I'd rather watch something else. So, I guess my thing and when I wrote Change in the Game in 2012, my whole thing was, and you both have echoed this, start at the end. What is the purpose of sport in your child's life? And work backwards from there.
Yeah.
Because no one says, I hope they have 3 ACLs and hate this and are surrounded by bully coaches and whatever. They say what you did, Kevin. I want my kid to be a fully functioning human being. I want them to be an athlete for life. I want them to be surrounded by positive mentors. Well, then be intentional about that end product from the beginning because it's really hard to shift gears when they're beat up, burnt out, and they quit. Don't you think? It's that was my diatribe there. I'll hit mute on my microphone. But Alex, go ahead.
That was great. Yeah, that was great. Gosh, there's so much. Guys, we got to do this for like 10, 12 hours. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
There was so much there. So I was working on a second book, really not even to be the author, but with the best coach I've ever been around. Guy named Tab Baldwin, who had taken New Zealand to the Olympics around 2000 or so, had placed fourth in the worlds. Just a great coach and a good friend. And in that process, he was talking about how, as a coach, he was just reminding me, right? We plan out the season. So what are we trying to accomplish this season? What are we looking at? And then you reverse engineer backwards so you can be responsive and not reactive, right? And that's part of the goal for Kevin and I in writing this book is let's have some intentionality so that we can help incredibly busy parents reflect a little bit, but also plan a little bit so that now they're more responding. I mean, I think Kevin mentioned something so helpful just in life. It's a real life skill. I've got these filters. I put these boundaries, guidelines, guardrails, whatever you want to call them, on myself so that I don't cross the line. For example, I don't ask about the game right after the game in the car. Okay. You have these filters and you think, right? You have these goals and you work back from you operate from parenting with intentionality. I mean, you wouldn't run a company unintentionally. I don't know, guys. Let's try to go sell over here. I don't know, guys. You wouldn't run a game plan like, I don't know, try to kick it in the goal. We'll see what happens, right? You're intentional. So we wanted to promote that. But one of the biggest things, and I got this from uh listening, I want to, gosh, I hope I don't say his name wrong. I think it's Dr. Michael Mann. He studies public health policy or teaches it, sorry, out of Boise State, I believe. And he was talking about something that Iceland did that was incredibly impactful to their youth and families. And without going into the whole story of that, he used a phrase that I love, and I think it really is relevant to us for goal setting. And that is, he said, in the Icelandic model, the prescription was the process, right? So being involved, getting parents involved. It wasn't that, okay, you have to do it this way as much as you need to listen. You need parental engagement, but you need parental engagement the right ways. Okay, so what does that look like? And it might have been a little bit different in different communities. But the whole point of that is a lot of times the process itself is what is of greatest value. And I'll end my own little diatribe on this, John. If sometimes we can exalt the goal to a place that it doesn't belong. What do I mean? We talked about Division I sports. Well, I played Division I, and it didn't make me a Nobel Prize winner. I'm not, I'm a guy, right? It was fun. It's great. I'm not knocking it down, but it wasn't that my life problems were solved, that I was a better person than anyone because of it. It was something I had the opportunity to do. And some of the almost all of the best people I know didn't play Division I. And that's only because so few people do. So it doesn't make you a better person or anything. And the last part of all this is I actually got my goal in life. When I was 11 years old, I told my brother I want to be good enough to play basketball at an Ivy League school. We were in Northeast Thailand at the time. Um, and I told him I want to be good enough to play at an Ivy League school and good enough to play pro ball overseas. Well, I was a captain of Cornell for 2 years, graduated in 97, and I got to play for 10 years in the Philippines. And it was at the height of my success. We had just won the championship. I was the MVP of the league. And literally, I'm a man. I'm just my girlfriend at the time was an ex-Miss Philippines. So I think I'm the coolest guy in the world, right? This is as high as I can go. Everything's great. I had never been more depressed in my entire life than I was at the peak of my prime. And that was because I had exalted the goal to being the end all be all. And then I was there. I was like, oh, I'm not magically better than everyone. All my internal battles aren't changed. I'm not perfect now. And I'm 25. What do I do now? And so I think as we go through this as parents, maybe just remembering like goals are great, it's great, but value that process of goal setting and getting it to it. It doesn't make them who they are just to get that goal. And there's life skills behind that. So sorry for the long ramble, but
No, it makes a
just
lot of
some things.
sense. I set a goal for writing a book, not so I can complete the book, but I set a goal for writing the book because I just love the process so much. It's just so much fun. All the details. It's just, and where it takes my brain, it just makes me feel alive and vibrant. So we have to identify that, is what you're saying, uh, uh, Alex. But that brings me to a point in your book. We can go right to it now because you did mention the idea of parental engagement. And in the book, you talk about parental engagement cycle. What is that? How do we understand that? And how do we implement it if possible?
Yeah, well, I just spoke for about 5 minutes, so I don't know if you want to start, Kevin, just so we can be good teammates here.
Oh, you got it, brother.
Okay. All right. Well, so the first part, and that's really important for us, is modeling. There's three assets to this. There's modeling, elucidation, and feedback. And with modeling, it's the phrase, you guys maybe have heard this before, hurt people. Where, well, we're parents, we're not perfect, right? And so sometimes our stuff comes out onto our kids. And the reason I bring that up is sometimes we can say one thing, but be modeling the opposite. And the truth of the matter is, more truly is caught than taught from our kids. They see us, they pick it up, they know what's going on. And so we need to be aware of ourselves first, right? Um, Gosh, I mean, we could talk about so much, but I've told my kids since they started playing sports, if you can learn how to manage your emotions, if that's all you get out of youth sports, you've just accelerated yourself amongst above so many people that have not learned how to do that yet, right? Well, if I'm saying that, but flying off the handle at the littlest thing all the time in the house, like, yeah, manage your emotions really important. Guess it really matters to you, right? They're going to go, you're modeling something totally different. So part of how we're modeling and living our own lives, that's probably at the inception the most important thing, because we think our words matter so much, and they do, they really do, but how we live screams, and our words are more like a whisper in that sense. Um, and then the second portion of this is elucidation. How do we explain things? There's some funny stories around that we've all probably had. Somebody thinks you meant one thing, and you meant something else. But a lot of times I notice as parents, when we're explaining something, I will think the kid knows because they're my kid. And so I think that it's clear because it's clear in my head. And even if I've told them 5 times, it might not be clear, right? You think that there's clarity. Well, I said that, so he should do it. Well, that's, great. When you try to coach yourself because you tell yourself something, do you do it right away? That's not. So the clarity of our message is an important part of this parental engagement cycle. And then finally, the last part is feedback. So we discussed this earlier, but it's, are we listening? That's half of the communication is listening. And maybe as a parent, it might even be more, because you got to know what you're dealing with. And so this cycle, then, as we can give feedback, then we can model better, and we can give clarity in our message. We can listen more. Then, it's just this whole thing that hopefully is not a vicious cycle, but a wonderful one. So that's a quick summary. And there's some fun stories around all that, but those are important things.
Let me
Kevin.
add a little bit about the modeling because so we start our book with values. And so John, you'd mentioned, beginning with the end in mind, essentially. And um, I think that a lot of parents, they begin with the end in mind, but they forget the foundation, which would be the values. And sometimes when you look at those, you have your values and your goals don't align. And there's this values gap there. And so you have to address that values gap. And a lot of parents in youth sports, they're willing to give up their values for their goals. And they don't realize they're doing it. And I'll give you an example. You talked to us about coaching, right? How many coaches are not great role models for our kids, but because they promise us or have a reputation of getting our kids to a scholarship or to get better, whatever those are, that we then say we're giving up the values, we're sacrificing our values because that coach is supposedly going to get us to the goals that we want. And so what is that when it comes to modeling is who do we allow to be around our kids, and then who do we surround ourselves with? And so we want our kids to surround themselves with good people, especially when they're in school, right, and they're growing up. But if we're not modeling that for them and they don't have those same values, so we're having this values gap here. And so one of the things that I am currently actively doing for my 15-year-old is he and I sat down. I said, "Hey, bud, um, who are some men that you look up to?" And so we went through some men. There's three men that we've identified. One is a local pastor. Another is a local businessman, and another is a former military man. And he is in the process. He's invited them to lunch, and once a quarter, he goes and eats lunch with them. There's no agenda. It's just to go eat and hang out. And I've talked to all three of them. I said, listen, I don't care what you talk about. You are great men. I want you to influence him. And so if you talk about basketball, great. You talk about girls, great. You talk about school, great. You talk about dinosaurs, great. I don't care. But I just need to surround my son
Mm.
with men who can influence him in the way that I want him to be influenced. And so that's something that's real important to me. And so the same thing is now I had a conversation with my son as I said, hey, but who are my friends? Who are the people who are influencing me? And those are people I want to influence me. And the people who I don't want, I distance myself from. And that all filters through what do I value and what do I want my son to end up valuing? And so that's that modeling kind of, and I'm really big on modeling. That's why I wanted you to talk first, Alex, is because I really feel that we can model this. And I think parents, we lose that because we sacrifice our values for our goals.
I
Well,
think it's yeah.
modeling is amazing to John and I as well, because like even in our conferences or the work that we do together, we're teaching a concept, but if we're not being that concept in the moment, it goes right past everybody. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy is that I get the chance to model by being what I'm teaching. And that's my value. And so my values are coming out and you can feel them. I can feel John's values when he's teaching. And he's not saying one thing, he's not talking about integrity and then turning around and doing something completely different. And it's a great message for our listeners because there's a lot of coaches out there that I think in order to, yeah, they don't think that they're good enough models, but we're not talking about information, data, how much you know. It's modeling being, modeling being a human being, and first, and then everything's possible from that place. It's a safe. What's happening is he has a safe place where he can feel free to be who he is, and that's what we're really talking about. And one last point I want to make is we keep coming back to this word goals. A long time ago, I redefined what a goal means, and for what it's worth, a goal is not something to get to. A goal is a tool. It's a lighthouse. It's a it's a flashing beacon in the distance, and it goes like this. It just flashes. And as long as I keep looking at that flashing, I'm going in that direction. And what that means is where I am is I'm being who I need to be in order to, if I were to get to that goal, I have to be this way. So it keeps me in the process. And the goals are not something to measure your self-worth by. They all they are is tools that you implement. And the goal itself is not the objective. The objective is to let the goal keep you in the process of joy, which something we haven't talked about, but this whole idea of joy, which is one of my values, and how do we create that in our safe environment? Anyway, I'll stop talking there, John.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on to joy, but not without saying, Kevin, what you just lined right there, that in that couple minutes, I think if parents just did that, figure out, like, write down, get crystal clear on what do we value, right? What are the non-negotiables in this family? Um, then seek out people who can do that. I mean, when we ask kids today, what's the number one career that kids want? Influencer, right? And so instead of being intentional about who is influencing my kid, we hand them the phone and let them go find influencers all over the place who many are not positive, not the type of things that we say we value. And sport is this perfect example of how oftentimes we throw out everything we value because they get their players scholarships or they win more games. But when you really dig into those people who are bad coaches, bad models, you see, they highlight the unicorns that got the scholarship, but how many other kids quit? How many other kids walked away? How many other kids hate insert sport and hate their coach and whatever, for that one kid to get a scholarship who survived, right? And so this is, I mean, I just want to just reemphasize how important that is to use sport, to do your best to surround your kids with people that are positive influencers. And if that's not a possibility, because it not always is, well, like you said, find the local military person, church, fire department, whatever, right? Community leader, and say, just have lunch with this person. And it's such a powerful thing. So thank you for sharing that. I was writing and circling and starring so I don't lose that.
Well, with that, John, I think even again we can get back to process. So, because I was thinking the same thing, I wanted to make that point that not everybody can find somebody that has like values to coach their kids, right? Sometimes there's a little bit of a shortage of great youth coaches who are like the model human being that you want. It's youth sports, so you get different parents stepping up or other people in the community. But if your kid sees the process that you're trying to do something like Kevin did and goes like, hey, we got a small town, it's 30,000 people. The coach is the coach. This is who you got. We can address some of the values gap between our values and that person. You can still honor and respect authority, but here I want to align you with certain people. They see that process and that intentionality behind what you value, and really you're initiating something. It can almost be, in some senses, even better than just finding somebody who's like-minded and turning the kid over completely, because the kid sees your response and your
Yeah.
initiative in that, and that you really do value this.
Hmm.
So I just want to encourage the parents that are listening that it doesn't mean that if you can't find somebody who exactly has
Yeah.
your values that, oh no, my kid's life's over. Well, initiate something that shows that you really do value it, and they'll respond, they'll take note.
A great
And then
point.
just aside from that, also, Kevin and I are close friends who wrote this book together, and we share a lot of common values. But if he listed his top 5 values for his family, they might be different than mine, right? And that's fine. We're not here to tell you what they should be. Every context is different, every family is different. But the process, again, of defining what yours are, and if there's clarity around them for your family where your kids can speak them, that in itself is very helpful.
But it's the process of choosing values. It's not that they're the same. It's like, so what if we have 10 people with 10 different sets of values? What you're saying, if I hear you correctly, Alex, is that these people are doing things that are really worthwhile for their children to see in the process, that they're intentional about choosing what they believe. And then maybe there's some people out there that happen to fit over those values, or there might
Right.
not. But
Right.
just choosing that and educating our kids that, this is how we do things here. This is our culture. My family is a culture. And culture, of course, comes from the word cultus, which means caring. And in my culture, we care and we have joy and we work at it. We work at it. It's not a joyful day every day. But we have these guidelines, and every family out there that's listening, or every coach or whatever, it's not which values are right or wrong. They're values. The word itself, value means something good. So you can't go wrong if we can stay connected to that process.
How do I know?
Absolutely.
How do I know if I'm a parent? What are the signs that I might be screwing this up? Like, well, what are the signs? And maybe Kevin, we can start with you, like about your son and golf, because not all kids are brave enough to be like, you know what, I quit, right? I mean, a lot of kids get to college
Yeah.
because and they're still signed up and play a sport and they were done 2 years ago, but they felt the pressure from their parents or from whatever to keep it going, and they had already lost the love. So just anything in either of your experience, starting with you, Kevin, of like, what are the signs that maybe I need to back off if my child is not old enough or confident enough to say, Dad or Mom, back off?
That's a good
Well, I
point.
would stick with my um it took a while before he actually said it. Um my son's an obedient child, and so obedience can fake love. And so he when I told him, "Hey, did you do your 100 putts?" "Yes, Dad." And he'd go do them because he's obedient. And and so now as I reflect back, it was he never did it on his own, right? I never see him pick up the putter, right? If we went into a sporting goods store, he's not going to the golf clubs, right? He's not showing that initiation. He's not, "Hey, Dad, can I get this driver?" And so those type of things where they're little, they're cues, right? Instead, I'm like, "Hey, do you want this new driver? Hey, why don't you see if this putter is better for you?" Right? Because it's me driving and he's being pulled along. Now you compare that now where he has a different dedication now, or sorry, similar dedication, but it's his own. He has his own drive where he'll come to me and he'll be like, "Hey, Dad, do you think this is a good drill for me?" And he shows me on YouTube. "Hey, Dad, can I go shoot at school today?" Right? And I'm having to pull him back. I'm saying, "Hey, you've gone 12 days in a row. You're doing absolutely nothing today." "Well, Dad, can I at least shoot free throws in the backyard?" "You're doing absolutely nothing today." Right? And so like that's just a whole different where he's the one. And one of the things that I've kind of started doing with both my boys is when they enter a sport, we provide the bare minimum, right? Soccer cleats, right? Football cleats, basketball, whatever the bare minimum. But then I tell them, "Hey, anything extra, we'll split 50-50. So you already have a driver. You want a new driver? You got to pay half of it." And so, "Oh, you want a new pair of Jordans? You got to pay half. We already got you shoes." Um, and so now there's buy-in on his end, and I am supporting. And I just put that money aside, parents. I'm not over here just collecting extra money, and it goes right back to him. But the point is this is where I get to see his buy-in, his own personal investment, and it adds just another filter. Because if he brings me something because he wants it because it's cool, but he's not willing to invest in it himself to the sport that he claims he loves, then maybe he's not loving it. He just wants me to spoil him. There's a big difference. And so those are the cues. Is they're small, right? um for like the older one, he's showing me stuff on YouTube. "Hey, Dad, do you think this is a good move? Do you think this will fit my game?" Right? Those type of things. And they stop doing those, you got to wonder if it's your passion that's driving the bus.
Love that. Alex, anything in your experience that you've seen or experienced that gives those same clues? Because I love, Kev, I love what you said. Like, right, it's enjoyment, it's ownership, and then it's the intrinsic motivation comes from that, right? And if it's you always saying go practice, go that, and I think, and maybe this is the question I'll throw to you, Alex, like this is really hard as a parent. I remember my kids saying, "I want to do this in sport," right? And then I would say, "Okay, fair enough. What are people who want to achieve that doing right now in this moment?" Right? In soccer, right? Like go to the kickback wall, right? But it would be like, all right. And then 2 days later, they'd stop going to the kickback wall, right? And so as a parent, accepting the fact that no matter how fast your kid is or strong or skillful or how high they jump or whatever, they're not going to make it unless it's them pushing, not you. Now, it doesn't mean there's never a time for a reminder. It's like, come on, get out of bed. I got to drive you to this thing because that you wanted to do. Like we have a role, but like you said, it can't always be you going do your 100 putts, shoot your 100 free throws or whatever. It's got to come from that. And getting to that point where you can accept it and then also be honest with your child, like, hey, listen, I love you so much, and it's totally fine that you're not doing this extra stuff, but don't tell me that you want to go play in college because you're not on that path right now. And that's okay because there's so many other things to do in life. That's totally fine. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh, yeah, you're on that path because you're not. Right. And that's a hard thing as a parent to do. But I think your kids appreciate it.
So it's so funny because I've said this so much and I've shared it with other friends. I don't know if I've said it publicly or not, but I was just talking to another parent about this yesterday, right? And saying, I've told my kids since I've had them, Daddy does not care one bit if you ever play basketball. I have nothing like happened to be something that I loved. You could decide not to play. I love you. It's awesome. How do I support you? You could decide you want to play and play with your friends and that's all you want to do. Awesome. I love you. I got your back. You could decide you want to play and want to be really good. Awesome. I'll help you if you want me to. Just don't expect to be good at anything and not put the time in. So you need to know the truth of it. You want to be great at the violin. Awesome. You better pick that thing up. You can't say I'm going to be playing in the Philharmonic one day and you never practice. It's just not how it works. And you don't have to play in the Philharmonic. I don't care. It doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you good at a skill. That's all right. So it's funny that you said that. I have this conversation all the time because the pressure of being a child of someone who is known for a certain skill, people will say, "Oh, your daddy's like this. Are you going to be too?" And they don't mean bad, but it can become an external pressure on the kids. I never wanted them to experience that. But to go back to your question about when to push and the difficulty of that, we actually, on the motivation chapter, we shared stuff that was some research from behavioral economics. And it was really interesting. There, we talk about cues, nudges, and pushes. And there are certain things you're going to have as a parent of younger children where you just have to say, you're doing this, right? If it's your value, like one of my wife's and we wanted the kids to understand the importance of community and of us. So we want the kids to be in team sports because we're of the belief that almost everything that you're ever going to do of really long lasting and deep value will involve other people, right? It's not going to be in your hermit. And some of those things exist, but that's really rare. So it's usually that. So our kids would have had to play team sports. So that's our value. So you need to get into team sports. So we're gonna, if we needed to kind of mandate it early, that's different when they're 8 than when they're 17, right? And the goal was until they're 13, they will be in team sports. Afterwards, they choose whatever they want. But we want them to learn that, it's so and so's time to shine, not mine. Maybe I was on the bench, I didn't like it. Okay, how did I process through that? How do I exalt our goals above my own individually and make mine a part of the big, but always the transcendent one, the bigger one being us, not me. So that was important for us. So in that instance, we never had pushback, but if we had to, that would have been what we call a push. You are playing soccer. You're 7. Sign up. Don't worry about it. You'll have fun. We're here for you, etc. The nudges are more like the, hey, as they get older, that's a more gentle, right? And just as the word would imply, it's just a little nudge. It's just a little, hey, you want to do this? And the cues might be something as simple as laying out a magazine that has an article, having a picture of something, washing and folding their whatever gear they use for whatever sport and putting it on their bed, not putting it away from, or, something that's like a reminder that's subtle. And so I think for us as parents, sometimes we can want to push too hard, or sometimes we can be overreactive on the other side, saying, I will never push, so I will never do anything. And sometimes the cues and the nudges are really valuable because I've had parents tell me my daughter didn't want to swim. And she was like, she was going to quit when she was 11 or 12, but I made her stick with it. And it was a wrestle. I took a lot of time. She stuck with it and she loves it. And she ended up getting a scholarship for swimming. And it's really something that she's been grateful for that I didn't let her quit. Again, so this gets back to context of listening to your kid, knowing them, trying to feel out when to push, when to step back, when to let them go. And I'm sure with your guys and all your experiences, man, it would be so much easier if it's just the formula is X minus two equals, there you go. But everybody's different and every situation's different. So do we just try to throw out a few different approaches that you could use depending on your own context?
Yeah. And again, that's why it's not the science of parenting, it's the art of parenting, right? We have some science to back it up, but it's all those little moments of like, do I push? Do I pull? Do I say something? Do I don't? Is this difficult? Is this dangerous? All these sort of things that I can't answer that for you. What do I value? What matters? What's a good role model? What's not? And so, I'm just Jerry and I were talking before you guys jumped on because I was trying to find some stat like how many baseball bats do we sell a year in the US? And it's millions. And I was trying to say, how many sports parenting books sell in the US? And it's probably in the tens of thousands, right? Every year, right? There's not that many. It's not a big market. And so it's like, and even just parenting in general, it's so much easier as a parent to buy the new driver, to buy the new carbon fiber bat, than get the $15 or $20 book and get some real ideas to provide a framework and a structure for your child's athletic experience. And I don't know. I've spent 13 years trying to crack that nut. So, um, it's a hard thing, but yet I always say like this book or this video or this TED talk or whatever will make a far bigger difference in your kid's performance than $1,000 more equipment in the net for next season. You know, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, just from Kevin and I both, thank you guys for what you're doing
Yeah,
because it really matters. None of our kids are in college yet. So we still got them. We're in the midst of it. And all the learning, I mean, I studied human development and family studies. It's like developmental psychology. Like
Mhm.
I thought I would be much better, but there's really no clear course out there. And then as Kevin and I would talk as writing this book, it's seriously funny how many times we're like, "Oh, I've got a story for you, man.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
can't believe I did this." This flies in the face of the research, and I'll be better now, but it's crazy. And we've helped each other out in that process. And so, first, just speaking to what you said, I would love to emphasize the value of community for parents. Like parents, you're not alone. If you feel bad that you screwed up, welcome to our party, right? Like that's called the parenting party. Like, let me tell you all the horror stories of things I've done wrong, that's okay. You're not alone. But having people that you can trust and open up to, and they don't have to be of exactly your same values, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, servanthood is our number one and yours isn't, so I'm not talking. It's not weird like that. It's like we're all trying to do our best, but sharing with other parents, like, hey, how's this going? How you guys doing? Right? Just having that community, and it doesn't have to be 10,000 people, just a few friends that you can actually talk to. It's really valuable. So the fact that you guys, John and Jerry, have spent so much time sewing into things that actually end up promoting that type of both research and insight, but also allow parents to come together and talk about stuff like this,
mm,
that in and of itself, relationally, has been incredibly valuable for me as a parent. And I would just encourage other parents, like, don't be shy, man. If you made a mistake, come join us.
love it,
Like we're all making mistakes. We're just trying to help each other out and get through this.
love it. How can people get this book, Alex, and how can they connect with you? And then Kevin will give you kind of your last thought and last word and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so our book's available on Amazon. It's called Guiding Your Child's Athletic Journey. Um, and there's an audio book that Kevin and I recorded. It was fun. We actually in the recording studio. I don't have a good voice. Don't tell my kids that because I always say I'm the greatest singer in the history of the world. But I sent a clip of singing some Disney songs to them. So that was fun recording that ourselves. Um, And so there's an audiobook. You can get it on Kindle, or you can get the paperback. And then you can follow us. I'm on Instagram, Alex Compton, USPH, and LinkedIn the same. And then we also have an Instagram account for the book called Parenting Athletes. So yeah, just again, really appreciate you guys. I seriously feel like we could talk for hours. And I look forward to talking more offline as well.
Awesome. Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Kevin Dalafu. Real simple there. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I just want to add, and I think this is what you guys are doing so well. Um, Parents who intentionally parent tend to have the best impact on their kids. And so I call it pre-parenting, where my wife and I will stop and we'll go, what are we doing? What's the next adventure ahead of us? That's the obstacle. And then let's plan through that early. And that's just parenting with intentionality. And so when we come into sports, when I walk into a sporting event, I'm intentional of what I want to get out of this, right? When I'm choosing a travel team, what's the intentionality behind this? Who am I going to put around my kids? What school does he go to? All those things. And I think that if, as a parent, if we are intentional, and intentional means buy a book, listen to a podcast, everything you're saying, John, is if you can be intentional in your parenting, you're going to have the greatest impact in your kids' lives. And impact meaning a positive impact, the impact you want to have on them. And so those are kind of my last words there is just be intentional. And then intentionality, we screw up. Come to the parenting party. Alex is the host right now. Um, and I'm the co-host. But at the end of the day, if you intentionally parent, the results are going to be so much better than if you just wing it. And so, John and Jerry, it's been a blast. It's been a pleasure. This has been an amazing time. And again, not that you need our encouragement, but we encourage you for all that you've already accomplished and continuing to do so, because you are impacting not only the current generation, but the next generation. And that's such an inspiring thing to see, two men doing that. And so we're grateful for you guys.
Well, appreciate that, guys. And thank you so much for being on the Way Champions podcast. We really appreciate it. Jerry, it was a wonderful conversation about parenting again with two guys who are in the middle of it as parents and then have done the
Yeah,
research and written a book. And it's nice because I wrote a book in the middle of it for myself as well, and it was really
yeah,
helpful. You know, what I forgot to ask him was, do you ever feel pressure as someone who's written a book about how to be a good sports parent to be a good sports parent? Because I would feel that as also like, God, I can't screw this up. Like,
yeah. I made sure my writing about kids and stuff took place after I had learned some things. But
yeah.
I they you bring up a good point. Alex and Kevin were different. They weren't your normal visit from authors selling a book. They were two parents who happened to have a book.
Hmm.
And what they were sharing here were their hearts and souls about parenting and the genuineness of both of them. Like almost like they didn't even care that we talked about the book at all. I
Hmm.
tried to bring up some things from the book a couple of times, and they just sort of went right back to being genuine, authentic people, parents.
Hmm.
And so if that's any indication, the book is fantastic, right?
Hmm.
Because they're coming from their heart and they're writing from that place. And they're on the same wavelength as you and I, uh, John, in terms of the work that we're doing as well.
Yeah, and I mean the concepts of letting your kids own it, the ride home and these filters, as Kevin called them. These concepts, lots of people have written books around these concepts. I think I like some of these guys' description. Again, I said it. I really like the whole, don't let your passion become your child's burden, right?
Yeah,
But the emphasis again on alignment of your values and your goals for your kids, how important that is, and then
yeah,
seek out coaches or non-sports
yeah,
teachers,
yeah,
whatever, to really
yeah,
model the things that are important to you, that's
Yeah.
that's the key to raising your child, because you're going to get a
Yeah.
bad coach, you're going to get a bad teacher, and in those moments you want them to be able to compare it to something else.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's no Mr. Smith.
Yeah.
He's no Mrs.
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
Yeah, yeah. This thing about passion becoming a kid's burden, I experienced this because, as you know, John, we both are very passionate about what we do. And my kids, they have a father who's, went the distance educationally, went the distance in terms of publishing and all this. So it becomes kind of a hard act to follow. Both of us are. And our kids sort of like, it's a little bit intimidating at times, I found for my kids. So my point is that I really had to work at continuing, and I continue to do this, to tell them that, I love you for just who you are.
Mhm.
You don't have to be anything, just the way you are as a human being. You're amazing people. I'm
Mhm.
so proud that you are who you are, and all of that stuff that I have done is not nearly as important as to sit here and watch you guys be great human beings. And hopefully I had a role in that. But I always remind them that this is not about collecting numbers and collecting numbers of books, numbers of degrees, numbers of anything. And so parents have to really be aware of that. If you do have that position, then you're a hard act to follow. Kids are feeling that even if they don't say it. So you have to be more mindful about that.
I mean, I'm sure it was for you, right? You know, it was a hard moment to tell my dad I didn't want to be a fireman, you know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, or I wasn't going to go to law school or this or that.
yeah.
It's a hard thing, because you don't want to disappoint him. And of course he was fine with it. But anyway, well, listen, everyone, thank you so much for listening today. Again, thank you to Alex and Kevin, and all the links are in the show notes to connect with them directly and to find the book and all that sort of stuff. Thanks to Sprocket Sports, thanks to our Patreon podcast champions, and thank you to all of you who have subscribed and listened and left us reviews and comments and suggest guests for us and everything. We really, really, truly appreciate everything you do, your influence in spreading the word. We can bring in the Kevins and the Alexes, but when you go and you share it with your friends, with your colleagues, that's really how it influences people. So thank you, because your influence is not neutral, is it, Jerry?
No, I seem to have heard that someplace before, but it's very true. I love it.
Thanks everyone for listening. See you again next week.